Sylvia, welcome to Shift Happens. I'm so glad you're here. As you know, in my podcast, I'm speaking to women and they share stories about a pivotal moment and a turning point in their life. And I'm really so glad that things fell into place and we met online
Yeah.
through Red Books Me, the wonderful collaboration with Cartier, where
Wonderful.
thinkers come together and share ideas about life and philosophical thoughts, which I cherish a lot. And whenever I saw something that you shared, I felt immediate connection. So I
Oh,
was
me.
so curious to speak to you. Um, so before we dive into the deeper stuff, I want to, of course, introduce you. You are an award-winning filmmaker, now super successful back into private equity wizard, and investigative journalist, international speaker, social entrepreneur, and you've written 4 books. And your latest, you just showed it, is Fearless, A Guide to Freedom and Fulfilling Your Fullest Potential. I'm
Yes.
so curious about that. Um, I want to ask you, what is your current state of mind?
Oh, I feel good. Like I've been pretty slow. Like I've slowed down a lot since coming back from Korea last week. So yeah, so it's kind of catch up time. So
Mhm.
it's okay. It's not too stressful, but next Monday things will start picking up. Oh, is it okay if you don't mention the journalist? Because I left journalism in 2014 and I've cut it out. I'm starting to cut it out because it's not easy to be a journalist now because a
Mhm.
lot of the
Mhm.
companies are cutting and because
Yeah,
you're also in the
yeah,
media space.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
unfortunate, isn't it? Like
yeah.
this freelance lady, because I asked her to do a book review of my book,
Hmm.
and she said they've cut the budget for freelancers at the main newspaper here. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
shock. I used to
it is.
freelance. So,
Yeah, it is a
yeah.
shock. How would you describe your idea of perfect happiness?
Wow. I would say it's having a calm mind, a peaceful spirit, a loving heart, a full heart, and with loving relationships around.
Hmm. And which living person do you most admire?
Wow, I'd say my mother is the first person to come to mind because she is not bitter through all the experiences of life, and she is a very loving, kind, fun, joyful person, and she has never yelled at me in my life. Maybe when I was really little, but she's really been able to keep her cool,
Hmm.
and she has extraordinary EQ and knows how to hold her tongue
Hmm.
and to be kind to even those who are very mean, and I admire that in my mother.
Hmm. Yes. Wow. Hold her tongue. That's admirable. Yes. Um,
Exactly. It's hard.
so you shared with me that your pivotal moment, one of the pivotal moments was back in 2007, and you wrote that you hit rock bottom. Of course, if you can put that a little bit into context, also with your cultural background, that would be great. And also then what happened then?
Sure. Well, besides, I've had some near-death experiences and in investigating the trafficking underworld and nearly died when I was filming this notorious brothel area and I came out of it alive by the skin of our teeth, and that led me to have post-traumatic stress, actually. So that was quite pivotal because it helped me to identify with trafficking victims more than I ever could.
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I, Claudia, we are privileged. We have choices in life. We can choose, what to do, where to go, what to wear. And these women, these exploited women, have had their choices, their basic decisions stolen from them. And so besides that is my divorce. And although I've made peace with it, and I feel very good and serene about that experience now, but when I was going through it back in 2007, it really left me reeling because I wasn't prepared to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up very performance oriented, very, I am what I do. If I achieve well, then I'm a great person, or I've arrived, or that I was a human doing, not a human being. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a horrible way to live. And the divorce, it just knocked all the props under my feet, under my legs, all the
Mm-hmm.
false props that were holding up my ego, my identity, who I was. And the most painful time, because divorces are always painful, even if you don't love the person. And I didn't love the person. I was just rushing in, married for a year, and felt like I didn't deserve, I wasn't worthy of love, actually. And so going through that
Wow.
divorce really forced me to
Mm-hmm.
process and do the inner work and know who I am, know why I made that choice. And part of it was cultural because and I'm not blaming my father, but my father and grandfather rejected me for being a girl. So there was gender discrimination, and this affects like 80 million women
Yeah.
in
Mm-hmm.
Asia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was subtle, and it was never broadcast. It was never told to me directly by my father or my
Mm-hmm.
grandfather, but I
Mm-hmm.
felt it. It haunted me. It haunted
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was as if I was striving in very aggressive ways to prove myself to my dad,
Extra.
the,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
specter, the specter of my dad. And I wrote about this on LinkedIn, and actually dozens of men wrote to me and said, I relate. They didn't go gender discrimination, but they've had the pain of not being fully accepted by their fathers, and
Mm-hmm.
feeling like they had to meet some unhealthy or unattainable standard of their dad. And so how I came to find healing and closure
Mm-hmm.
was that led me to investigate the trafficking underworld.
Mm-hmm.
It led me to try to help people who were in even more pain than I was.
Mm-hmm.
And then that inadvertently led me to find my purpose in life. And that is to help those who are marginalized, vulnerable, exploited, and trafficked. And I felt happier because
Mm-hmm.
before the divorce, I was very selfish and wasn't very philanthropic, a little bit, but I hadn't gone through the school of hard knocks, really, not really.
Mm-hmm.
And then going through that divorce was so good for me, really. And there's a phrase, it's not a tomb, it's a womb. And I would say that was the case for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
initially, when I was going through it, it felt like death. But
Wow. Mm-hmm.
after, wow, it
Renewal. Mm-hmm.
catapulted me. It
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, it was a rebirth, really.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
changed so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. What a story. And also the openness, yeah, to realize that going through this pain and through this deep valley, um, that there still is a chance for renewal, you know, that when we hit down
Yes.
there, that there is still a way up, especially as you
Abs-
said, for us, because we have a privilege. So it's almost a responsibility, right?
Absolutely. And
Mm,
when we're
mm,
going through it, it's so dark,
mm,
and we can't seem to think or believe that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And that's why we need people around us,
mhm,
right? People we trust, relationships, friendships. And that was part of what I wrote about in the upcoming book. It was all the lessons I wished I had told my my younger self knew,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
That I wished I knew in my 20s, my 30s, and 40s even. And so, yeah, I wanted to write this for people who are going through adversity, who are going through toxic offices or bad relationships, or needed advice on how do you find a life partner, right? Someone
Mhm.
who
Mhm.
you'll spend the rest of your life with. Because I
Mhm.
do know people in bad marriages who
Mhm.
rushed in, just like I did in my first marriage. I'm now in
Yeah.
a good second marriage.
Yeah, bad marriage, and many stay in there.
I
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
the kids also hold people in place, but it's
Mm.
so pervasive, Claudia, isn't
Mhm.
it?
Mhm. Yeah, it is. It really is.
Mhm.
So, just to understand, so you are Korean, and
Yes.
but you did not grow up in Korea, correct? You grew up
No, no.
in Canada, and you were born in
Yes.
Canada?
No, I was born in Korea, and then
Okay.
at 2, I moved to Vancouver. And
Mhm.
so basically, I wasn't very in tune with the Korean culture or language, but in the last few years, I've really embraced it. And
Mhm.
so different opportunities have come to me here and there, like a Korean drama company. They
Mhm.
want to work with me on developing a TV series based on my journey of investigating the trafficking underworld. And then I've also been asked
Wow.
to coach a K-pop band.
Mhm.
And so, just different things that I thought, gosh, like how random. But interestingly, when those opportunities came up, I thought, oh yeah, I could see myself really enjoying that,
Mhm.
and also having a connection back to my cultural roots.
Mhm. And what I'm interested in also, when you grew up, how did you identify? Like, did you feel
Yeah.
Korean? Did you feel Asian? Did you feel Canadian? I can imagine it's not
Yeah,
that easy, yeah. And also, if you are not
yeah,
so close to your original culture, how do you bridge that?
absolutely. Absolutely. No, that you just hit the nail on the head, because the biculturalness,
Hmm.
being both Korean and Canadian, yet neither here nor there. I was on the bridge in the middle. So I
Hmm.
didn't fully belong on the Canadian side, and I didn't fully belong on the Korean side. And so being in this kind of ambiguous gray space, and also when I was younger, suffering for it, right? And
Hmm. Hmm.
experiencing racial discrimination,
Hmm.
and which
Hmm.
was very perplexing to a
Hmm.
child.
Hmm.
And this became my superpower later on. And it's allowed me to navigate cross culture, right? And I've lived overseas in Beijing and Hong Kong since 2004. And it's also helped me to find my voice,
Hmm.
and to really um, dig into who I am.
Hmm.
And had I not had this bicultural kind of navigating two different worlds, like my Korean world with my parents eating Korean food at home, and then back at school with mostly Caucasian friends at that time, although Vancouver is now more than 50% Asian. But back when I was growing up, it was
Hmm.
very, Asians were in the minority.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, navigating that, it, I think it did wonders for
Mhm.
my communication skills later on and the ability to read between the lines even. And so, yeah, I'm thankful for it now. But going through it, you don't really appreciate, right?
Mhm.
The hard times or the challenges or the perceived barriers. But it also gave me the grit and the resilience
Mhm.
to overcome like little hindrances, right? And thank God for that. Otherwise, I'd be a marshmallow or what do they call millennials? Strawberries, where you press them and they turn red. Something like that.
That's so mean.
It is
Yeah.
mean, isn't it? I appreciate millennials. I get along with them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, totally. Um, so, and you then started on your way to investigate human trafficking, which is, I find now that, I read more about you, and I really cannot wait to read your book, A Long Road to Justice. Um,
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Even though I'm also a little bit scared, yeah, because it's so horrific. And so what made you go down that path, and even after this near death experience, really stick to it, and yeah, and dedicate your part of your life to it as well?
Yeah. Well, the initial reason for me to begin investigating the horrors of sex slavery was when I was 15, turning 16. My mom shared an article about a survivor of a Korean survivor in Seoul
Hmm.
who had survived the unspeakable Japanese military sex slavery, forced prostitution, and she had gone through it for several years. And I was in shock
Hmm.
because I was in the 11th grade and had gone through the world wars, right? And learning about World War II, yet there was no mention of any suffering women, no mention of
Hmm.
Asian women. And there was something that really profoundly disturbed me about that, but I couldn't articulate it at
Hmm.
that time. And I couldn't comprehend that these history textbooks in my school, in my high school, in a predominantly Caucasian Vancouver at that time, were Eurocentric. And and I knew it was wrong to not be exposed to other aspects, other history stories, yet I couldn't put it in words. And so that had a big impact on me.
Hmm.
And I remember my mom telling me about this story and me going to the library, looking up the books in the library and realizing, oh wow, no mention at all,
Hmm.
whitewashed. And I realized at that time, though I was so young, I realized, you know what? We need an English book, right? And there was something in me that I didn't articulate it, but I thought, wow, like I really wanted to read it in
Hmm.
English. And there
Hmm.
was only a newspaper in Korean. And so fast forward, that was like almost, I'm turning 16. Fast forward, I must have been 25, 26. And someone told me, an activist told me about a survivor, I think she was 83 at the time, Kim Sundok, who was testifying at the US State Department. And she was supporting a bill calling on the Japanese government to apologize for forcing girls as young as 11 and a few 100,000 women from across Asia into this system of military forced prostitution. And in a matter of hours, I decided I need to fly in. I need to meet this woman because this question mark, this curiosity, this compulsion really began, the seed of it began when I was a teenager. And then I just knew I needed to go there and meet her because I had heard Holocaust survivors speak and felt like, yeah, we need a public record. At that time when I was older, 25, 26, we need something written. And I was a journalist at that time. So I flew in to interview her. And then that put me on the track of I need to write a book in English about this chapter in history and write about war crimes and things like that. And then it was the divorce, my divorce experience, that pretty much sealed the deal and had me continue, but with more identification, more empathy and compassion. Because before then, really, I could not identify. But after the divorce, I could understand the darkness, the depression, I mean, it's only a fraction of what trafficking victims go through, but it also helped me understand that true fulfillment and contentment comes when you're helping those in need, when you're helping other people, when your eyes are off yourself. And so I tell people who are going through crisis, my friends, that, hey, look outward, start to help somebody, right? Don't get so self-absorbed, because when you are in troubled times, it's just a natural reflex to be navel gazing, right?
So of course I was wondering, and maybe it's, some kind of silo perception of me, but I feel that human trafficking is not a much reported topic. And now that I, got into it a little bit more through your leads, I'm like flabbergasted, that this is not basically on the front page daily, and it's still going on, and everybody knows about it. Nothing. It's I mean, I was really in shocked.
Yes. You know what, Claudia? Everyone who hears my talk and even my husband's talk, they say the same thing. Isn't that interesting? That why isn't this on the front page? My husband has said that very phrase in 100 speeches, and it's true. It's this insidious, because it's hidden. Because it's hidden. It's hard to investigate, right? And I was the first to interview a trafficking survivor and expose this extensively in Hong Kong and in other parts of the world. But this topic actually began being covered more thoroughly than before, I'd say around 2016, 17. So there are some news agencies that dedicate, they have a human rights reporter, and so I'm thankful for that, because they've been able to shine a spotlight, like CNN Freedom Day. They also do series on modern day slavery, and we need more of that. But absolutely, Claudia, I share your sentiment, and so do people who hear about this.
So next is your book launch. Let's get back to that. So that's October 29th, you said?
October 29th.
Where will you launch it? What's next on that road? And what's next in general?
So I'll do like just a series of launches. I'm not going to have one big one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just speak everywhere that I can, all the doors that open.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been able to get many speaking engagements so far, and will continue to go to companies, Rotary clubs,
Mm-hmm.
schools, universities, cafes, and do as many, yeah, that I can do every week, because
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that this book message, the book is called Fearless, truly believe we can begin a fearless kind of movement,
Mm-hmm.
especially for women,
Mm-hmm.
and to encourage us to connect and to overcome our personal issues, like, imposter syndrome or perfectionism or
Mm-hmm.
uh, feelings of unworthiness or self-hatred, you name it. And then when we do this inner work, we can reach our potential a
Mm-hmm.
lot more than when we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do reach our potential, I believe then we are more willing and more open to help those in need. And so, this fearless movement, the vision behind it is to encourage as many people to use their time, their talents, their money, their influence to really help those who are the most marginalized on
Mm-hmm.
earth,
Mm-hmm.
and to help those in slavery.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my vision. And so yeah, that's why I'm going to be speaking everywhere as much as I can.
It's a very important topic, but also very timely at the moment. There is so much fear on so many fronts. I mean, yes, it's in somehow innate in the modern woman, unfortunately. So we have to kind of extinct that. I'm with you on that. But altogether, I think as societies, we have to step out of this fear, despite all the threats that might be out there, and and
Yeah.
um, and really connect. That's the only way to get through this, I feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so universal. And
Mm,
every day in the last 2 weeks, I'd
mm,
say, yeah, almost everyone mentioned a fear or
mhm,
worry or
mhm,
anxiety. And I struggled with fear for so long, and learned to really center myself and to let go. Like I
mhm,
used to be, for instance, so scared of transitions, so scared of not knowing what's next, because I needed to be in control.
mhm,
And to not be in control was so terrifying to me.
mm,
And it gets easier, and to, tell myself, right? Like, what are these fears? Like, fear is, there's another acronym, false evidence appearing real. So
mhm,
I have techniques where I write it down, and then I delve into it, like
mhm,
what's really bothering me, and
mhm,
getting to the
mhm,
root of that, and
mhm,
having friends around you to keep you accountable.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, well said. So, as you said, you've been super busy and whizzing around. Just on a personal note, what do you do to relax and to calm down? And on the other hand, what energizes you?
Yeah, I do a lot of body massage. No surprise, to iron out the knots, the knots in my back muscles, my shoulder, neck. That I really enjoy. It's so
Mhm,
therapeutic.
mhm,
And I've had moments where I'm getting a massage, and then you know how emotions can be trapped in
mhm,
your muscles and in your body. And there have been more than a handful of times when I'm getting the work done, and it's the only time where I'm really still, and I'm
mhm,
lying there face down, and like tears start to flow,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so that just reaffirms the pressing need to be still,
Mm-hmm.
to really find that inner peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have inner peace last 3.5 months, not a lot of it, a lot of stress, but exercise. That's my saving grace.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's getting on the treadmill, it's running or getting out in nature, touching a tree, being near
Mm-hmm.
trees,
Mm-hmm.
the green leaves. I have a park near me that I love going to because the treed area, and there's a track surrounded by trees and bushes and beautiful flowers like hibiscus, and it reminds me of Vancouver. It
Mm-hmm.
just it feeds my soul,
Mm-hmm.
and because it reminds me of the environment I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will walk around that track and that refreshes me, or I'll go by the water. Like
Mm-hmm.
whether it's we live like 4-minute walk by the Victoria Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being by that, or we go to the beach. It's nearby, and I'll listen to the lapping, the rhythmic waves, and that helps calm and soothe me like
Mm-hmm.
few things
Mm-hmm.
can.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
other hobbies like antiquing or
Mm-hmm.
watching movies, or even binge watching Emily in Paris, on
Yes.
Netflix. That just help, to just turn off the mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then your second question was what brings me joy, right? That
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah. And what
so what
energizes you? Yeah.
yeah, so what energizes me is being around encouraging, positive people
Mm-hmm.
who love life. And even this conversation with you, Claudia, it's energizing because you
Mm-hmm.
have such a calm, a beautiful tranquility about you. And the way
Oh,
you
thank you.
ask questions is so natural. And that is energy giving, not
Mm-hmm.
training, right? And so that, and then just yeah, spending time with my husband, friends, just having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
really my guiding principle is trying to have fun and enjoyment and a happy time,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's like drudgery, even
Mm-hmm.
if it's something really hard like investigating the trafficking underworld, but trying to find moments of levity, moments
Mm-hmm.
of lightness and humor.
Mm-hmm.
That's what keeps me going.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to laugh, so I like to try to have one uncontrollable laughter fit, every so often. I mean,
Yeah.
I said to myself, I want to do uncontrollable laughter once a day, but it doesn't happen every day. But
No,
in
it
an
doesn't.
ideal world, Claudia, I would
Mm-hmm.
love to. I would love
Mm-hmm.
to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. I think that is a beautiful, beautiful ending and summary. So yeah, I wish you, of course, great success with your book. And will you come to the US at all?
Yes. In fact, next year I've been
Mm-hmm.
invited to speak in California.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will try to organize some book tours, and I've done 2 book tours in America before, and
Mm-hmm.
so I need to gear up for that. And yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah, it
let
was
me know
great
your
with you. Yes.
plans to come to New York. Yeah, it was so lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time.